I speak to rail engineer and writer Gareth Dennis. Gareth, welcome. What difference will passengers see?
Well, from the off, none at all. There'll be very little change. Look, let's get it straight. This is a very good thing. It's kind of reintegrating what is, the railways are a system. And what we've had for the last 30 years is that we've split it into lots of bits and tried to run it pretending it isn't a system. We have now we're in the process of reintegrating it across the country. That is a good thing. However, it was fixing the problems of the past. It is not necessarily solving all the challenges we see now and into the future, which is of the fact that there is this huge demand for rail, and we need to build a railway system with the capacity to move those people.
The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, has said that we've been giving up to £150 million in management fees to private train operating companies. We don't think that can be justified. How likely is it then that passengers will see cheaper fares?
So that money, it's good, it's useful that money is now going to be able to be reinvested back into the system. But the main thing that means fares are high is the fact that we don't have enough seats to bring those fares down. If you have the situation where trains are full, then essentially fares can kind of be set to match. The other thing, of course, is that the majority of fares have been in government control for long before this this nationalisation has happened anyway. So it's not the case that fares won't come down, but this is only one part of a much larger, complicated puzzle that needs to be all set out properly and got right to make sure that fares are able to come down and we continue bringing more people onto the rails. It's worth saying in the West Midlands, Birmingham and the surrounding urban areas, one of those major growth areas, the number of passengers, the growth of passengers is enormous on the cross-city line through, through University and northwards as well. It's just a really very successful railway. This is one part of helping make sure that success continues to grow, but it is only one first small step. There's a lot more to do.
Great British Railways will fully launch next year. Where is the evidence that publicly owned operators perform better? Because the argument was made in reverse, wasn't it, when we saw them privatised?
Yeah, I think what to do in kind of when talking about the evidence is it's very difficult to build a counterfactual of, well, what would have happened had we not privatised the railways. What is very straightforward to see is that the privatised railway system has collapsed. That we had that system, it collapsed of its own volition. Government didn't decide we're going to make this change. It collapsed of itself. And really what we're seeing with this nationalisation is just government responding to kind of picking up the pieces of what's left of that system that simply doesn't function anymore. It collapsed. It was in the process of collapsing before the pandemic. And since the pandemic, really, we've seen the system being de facto nationalised. This is really a formalisation of that. So the privatised railway system doesn't work. One way to think of it is, if you have a railway system, can that system go bust? Is it possible for us to switch off all the trains if that private company goes bust? The answer is no. Therefore, is it really a private organisation if the government has to underwrite it if things go wrong? Not really. So this is really just, it's a very sensible way to just sort of statistically change what we call this railway system. We're calling it now a nationalised operation. The question that's really interesting, though, is who controls, particularly for the West Midlands railway operation? That is those trains are branded with an identity that was decided on by local people. It was designed by local people. Are we going to see a situation, and this would be a backward step, where Westminster takes more control than Birmingham, than the West Midlands do over their local, their urban train network? That's really the interesting question at this point, is where's that control going to sit? I think there are opportunities to see that improve, but equally we wouldn't want to rebrand London Overground to Great British Railways, so the same should be true for West Midlands.
Yes, there could be a bit of a tussle there, couldn't there?
Yes.
You mentioned that this is just the beginning. So what are the future challenges then, if we're all being encouraged to sort of give up the use of petrol and diesel cars, for example? Climate change is obviously part of that equation.
Yeah, absolutely. The key challenges are, if we are driving this increase at, moving away from petrol and diesel cars, but also generally reducing how much we travel by car. And crucially, how many goods move on our railways. Well, that means increasing those, reducing how many are on the road. That means more investment in the system, in the railway infrastructure. There are several major projects in the works around the Midlands, particularly the West Midlands, which is really good news. High Speed 2 is one of the key ones, but also the Midlands Hub. Lots of investment, which is really good. But we actually want to see that increase. More investment in the railways means more people travelling. Means that there's the opportunity to reduce fares. And that's all good news. But other challenges to be faced is climate resilience. So that is the fact we know climate change is here. It's battering our railways with more rain, more flooding, and responding to that requires, changes in the way we do things as well. So there are a lot of challenges. Nationalisation, as we see here, is certainly one of the steps to move in the right direction to resolve those.
Gareth Dennis, thank you very much for talking to us.